Hello, everyone, and welcome to Political Forum. This is your chance to learn more about elected officials here in the city of Chicago. My name is Mike Jacobs, and I'm a staff member here at CAN-TV. And joining us tonight from the 29th Ward, Alderman Chris Taliaferro. Alderman, great to have you today.
Thank you, Mike. Same.
So we're going to be talking about a lot of different things today. We're going to be talking about what's going on, in your ward, what's going on in the city, and also what's going on in the state and how this all just, affects your ward. But first, for people who may not know you, introduce yourself to everyone.
Thank you. I'm Alderman Chris Taliaferro. I'm an alderman in the 29th Ward, and I was elected this year when they inaugurated on May 18th. Originally from the state of Virginia, I moved to Chicago after serving approximately 10 years in the United States Marine Corps. I was stationed in Chicago, and I decided to make Chicago home in '89. After that, I spent 10 years with the United States. I spent 10 years after spending my 10 years in the Marines. I joined the Sheriff's Department for 1 year, and I spent the last 21 years as a Chicago police officer. I currently practice family law. And I've had an exciting career as a police officer and attorney prior to my election.
So, what inspired you, to run? Because in the spring of 2015, you were one of 13 newly elected aldermen.
Yes.
So, what inspired you to say, hey, you know what, I want to run for the 29th Ward?
During my last few years as a police officer, for 3 years, I worked in the ward in which I was currently elected to. I saw a lot of crime. I saw things that were not necessarily moving in the direction they should have been moving in. And I felt that I could make a difference in the 29th Ward. The 29th Ward has an incredible group of residents that live there. And I felt it was very important that they receive the services that the city had to offer. And I didn't believe that they were currently being, I believe they were being overlooked, and I decided to run to make a difference in our community.
So let's talk about the 29th Ward. In fact, let's show a map here, and also it's got your contact information here. So the 29th Ward, when you're talking about it, what it's Austin, Galewood, Belmont Heights, Lawndale,
Well, actually, Shores Village, Belmont Heights, Montclair, Galewood, and Austin. So it's a predominantly diverse, very diverse ward, but it's a very large ward too. It's hard to describe the shape of the ward.
Mm-hmm.
I simply call it the stair step.
Oh, yeah, it does look like it's a step. And the information down here, because this is the next thing, and we'll keep that to come up later as well. But you are involved, and you want your constituents, your residents to be involved. So there's ways that they can get a hold of you via ward nights, community nights, stopping in. If you want to talk about that for a little bit.
Absolutely. We have ward nights every Monday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's when you could come in and have an individual one-on-one time with me. That's every Monday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at 6272 West North Avenue. The first Wednesday of every month, we have community nights. We hold community nights at the Columbus Park Refectory, and we also have community nights the third Wednesday of each month at Rutherford Sear Park. The first meeting actually at Rutherford Sear Park will be next week. But now also later on down the road, I'm going to have a precinct night as well. And that's where I address the concerns of a specific precinct in the ward.
So for folks who may not know, when you're talking about community night versus a ward night, a person living in the 29th Ward, what's the difference?
Well, as I said, the ward night, when you come into my office, we have a one-on-one conversation and with regard to the issue that you bring to me. The community night is more of a group setting. The first hour I usually spend introducing groups or organizations that I believe are very important to the ward. They may offer services in the ward that my constituents may not be aware of. So the first hour is spent allowing them to come in and present to the ward. The second hour is more so updates on what we're doing within the ward itself, and also a question and answer period as well.
So now, you've been now the alderman, since the spring as we're moving forward, coming to the fall and to the end of the year. What are the successes, and where do you see room for improvement, in the ward?
That's a good question, and I think we've had successes, and then we've only, like I said, we're working on almost 3 months. We've had success already with bringing businesses to the ward. I think a lot of people are very excited. A lot of businesses are very excited about opening in the 29th ward because they understand my commitment to bringing good businesses to our ward. We've had approximately 3 ribbon cutting ceremonies already. I'm looking forward to another business opening on April 15th. So we've had success there. And many of these new businesses are hiring from our community as well. And that's something I'm very proud of when I speak to a potential business owner. And that's asking them to hire from the community as well. So I'm very excited about the businesses that we're bringing in. What we will always continue to work on is rebranding the Austin community and rebranding that and letting our community know and letting the city of Chicago know that we are more than just a high crime ward. So we're working very diligently on reducing crime in the ward. And I think that's going to be the hallmark of any alderman in the city of Chicago, and that's being able to reduce crime in their community. Because with that, we could bring great business development, economic development, and community development throughout any ward.
Yeah, it seems like all of that ties together. So first, let's talk. Well, actually, you're probably going to answer a lot of the questions from here because I think one leads to the other. So when you're talking about reducing crime and rebranding the ward, is it specifically, reducing crime through bringing business into the ward, or what do you see? What, like when you're talking about crime first, how can you help reduce it?
Well, we're trying to implement crime reduction from several aspects and not just strict law enforcement. Reducing crime by strict law enforcement will never, I shouldn't say will never work, but it's a little bit more difficult without looking at all of the other areas to reduce crime. So with that, we've started looking at how we can create more businesses within the ward, educational opportunities. We've actually, along with the Chicago Police Department, we've started a math and science tutorial session that meets every Tuesday to offer tutoring in math and science. But along with police methods and police law enforcement crime reduction methods as well, I think we're going to have some success. We're going to have good success over the 4-year period. So if we could reduce crime from a broader perspective other than just trying to reduce it from strict law enforcement measures, I think we have a better opportunity.
Then specifically gun violence, that's always being talked about, through the summer or over the holidays. Is there anything specifically, that can be done, or what do you think should be done specifically to help reduce, gun violence and violent crimes?
I think it would be very important to offer laws in the state of Illinois and in the city of Chicago that produce, and I should say stricter penalties for possession or illegal possession of weapons and illegal use of firearms as well. But I'm very proud to say that we have a commander in the 15th district, Commander Dwayne Betts, and a commander in the 25th district, Commander Maria Pena. They're very passionate about reducing crime in their respective wards. And also Commander Roger Bay in the 16th district, which I do have a small portion of. Very passionate commanders about reducing crime in the 29th ward. I've had an opportunity to meet with each of them. I've worked with them in the past as a Chicago police officer, and I understand their desire to want to see a safer city and a safer 29th ward. So I'm very happy to continue to work with them while they serve as commanders in those respective districts.
And it's something that, when you're talking about, reducing crime and the violent crimes, it's not something that's going to happen overnight.
And that's correct. It would be almost impossible to reduce it significantly overnight. I think over my first term as alderman, the 4-year, you will see a reduction in crime.
And so now, making that segue, because when you're reducing crime, that means you want to bring more economic and community development.
That's true.
And you talked about some ribbon cuttings that you've already done, and some store and businesses that'll be opening in the future. Is that basically what you're talking about, hitting the ground running the minute that you came to office, to try to bring more businesses and opportunities for your residents?
And that's so true. I mean, and crime plays a very important role with business development as well as community development. Businesses want to come to an area and open in an area where they feel that they will survive, and not just from a business or economic perspective, but also from a safety perspective as well. And that's what we're trying to provide in the 29th Ward. Just the opportunity to be able to open your business and know that it's safe in the community in which I'm opening my business. And actually, there's a strong chance of profit as well. So that's what we plan on doing, and with crime, is reducing crime to a point where the 29th Ward is very attractive to any business owners. I would say this, and I'm probably more partial than I should be, but we have a ward that's centrally located, and it has an excellent location. It's surrounded by, I believe, 4 different suburbs. We have the green line, the blue line that run through it, and we're located right off the Eisenhower. So it's prime location, it's prime real estate. And I believe that we could build this ward so that businesses will look at that and see that this is a great place to set up my business.
And besides business, you also want the community to develop. Be reducing
Absolutely.
crime. Business development, economic development, but then the community development. Because I know that you want the schools and libraries properly resourced. Because you want people to move in. Because a lot of people, when they're talking about moving into a home, a community, they're like, well, how are the schools?
Right.
How's the library? How are the parks? So that's something really important for you too.
And that's true. And right now, I know that the city is operating off a very tight budget. Money is probably not as available as any the citizen or the alderman would like. But we work with what we have. Right now, we're trying to get a library in the Gilwood neighborhood. But that's going to be a money issue for the next couple of years probably. So we're looking to try to use TIF dollars to expand the current library. We have great plans. It's a matter of financing those great plans. We have 4 closed schools that are in the ward, and I think it's very important to repurpose those schools and make sure they're just not sitting buildings. So from day one, we worked on trying to repurpose those schools so that they can become assets in our community.
Well, it sounds like there's just a lot of energy that's going into the ward, and obviously on top of that, you're also looking for some volunteers. Am I right to be
Yes.
serving so many of the new aldermanic committees that you've started?
That's true.
Correct?
We've come up with anywhere between 12 to 15 committees, and those committees, automatic committees, can be found on my website. But we're looking for volunteers, people that want to be vested in the neighborhood in which they live, constituents that want to be invested in our ward, invested in the growth in our ward. So we're asking that if you look at the website and look at the committees that we're offering, that if you find something that is very interesting to you, to call my office so that we can get you on that committee. We like to have anywhere between 8 to 15 residents on each committee. But if there is more, I'm very happy with it. But I want passionate people about growing this ward, and I think those committees is a good way to do that.
And let's get that information out so people can know that to contact you. So the office phone number is 773-237-6460. Email at ward29@cityofchicago.org. And as you mentioned, your website, which is ALD and your last name, Taliaferro.com. ALDTaliaferro.com. That's great, because I know that a lot of people, especially when new leadership comes into a ward, that people really want to see, okay, they want to feel you out, see what kind of person you are. Then on top of that, then those people who really want to have their voice heard, and so this is their opportunity, people who are strongly, invested in the 29th Ward to have something to say about it.
And that's true. It's absolutely true.
So one of the issues, that's in the ward that you've talked about in the past is your ward is considered basically a food desert.
It is.
So talk about that, and what you see that could happen down the road.
Currently, we have one grocery store servicing the entire ward. That's Leamington, located on Madison. We have a smaller grocery store, Mario's, that's also located on Madison. But most of my residents have to go to Elmwood Park, Oak Park, Cicero, to shop for groceries. And that includes myself. I believe that we have to have adequate resources within the ward. I believe it's very important to keep the dollars that are earned in the city of Chicago, and particularly in the 29th Ward. Having a grocery store and some of the other resources that you mentioned earlier it's very important to have within our ward itself. So I will be working with the city very diligently to bring, first to find a location, second to bring that grocery store or resource to the 29th Ward. It means jobs. It means a growth in our tax base, and so it provides so many different opportunities. And then we could start shopping within our ward. And I'm going to work very hard to make sure we have those resources available to us. I know during the campaign season, there were opportunities. Well, I'm sorry, but there were mentions of grocery store coming to North Avenue in Harlem. And if we can make that happen throughout my tenure as alderman, we'll do everything possible to do that.
So now let's take a step back from the ward, and now let's talk about what's going on in the city and how it affects your ward. Well, first of all, let's talk about you and back to to what you're serving. You're on a couple of caucuses, aldermanic caucuses.
I am, yes.
So which caucuses are you on?
I'm a member of the Black Caucus, and I'm also a member of the Progressive Caucus.
When you're talking about those two caucuses, for folks who may not know, talk about each one individually, and what you guys and what those caucuses are working on right now, or what the focus is.
Well, I think we both, because there is a joining of some members, such as myself, that are members of both caucuses. But right now, I think our focus is on the city's budget. We have a very difficult time ahead with having to meet pension obligations. And so I believe right now both caucuses, the Progressive Caucus as well as the Black Caucus, will spend a lot of time focusing on what's best for the city of Chicago as we create and as we examine the 2016 budget. And that this issues of how we can generate new revenue within the city of Chicago to make an immediate impact and a long-term impact, as well as how we can reduce spending within the city of Chicago. So I think that's going to be the primary focus of both caucuses, and I look forward to adding my portion of there and being able to put forth ideas that come from our ward that could help the city move forward financially.
Yeah, let's delve a little bit deeper. You're talking about the financial state of the city. Recently, in the spring, the city council passed basically the city can borrow up to $1.1 billion to help the financial situation because the city is so strapped in cash. So, did you agree with this? Did you vote for this? And will this help? And what could it do?
Well, I did vote for it, and I think we were, as a new alderman, and as actually as a city council, I think we were in a position where, because of the city's bond rating being classified as junk, I believe we were in a position where it was something that we needed to vote on, because if not, we would have been faced with having those bonds recalled, which may have possibly led to property tax increases. So we were in a position where, and I think there was a good decision of the mayor as well, and I supported the mayor with this. I think we were in a position where our vote, although it may have place some more debt on the end, but our vote to making them a flat rate bond was very much needed.
And then you mentioned also new revenue and ways, or basically ways to get money into the city. And you mentioned two ways: new revenue and also what can be cut, like cost-cutting measures, around the city. So when you're talking about new revenue, like what could it be? I know that people are talking about a casino. That's been talked about in the past. I know there's a bill downstate. Is that like something that could work, down the line?
Well, yesterday I had an opportunity to sit in a briefing on the 2015 as well as the 2016 budget, and it was I was very inspired by it, because I think there were probably, and the city is doing this over a period of 3 days, and I was very encouraged because each alderman had an opportunity to sit down and talk about measures that they believed would be good for the city in increasing revenue or creating new revenue. So it was a good session, and I put forth an idea that I'll hopefully share later. But yes, we do need to create new revenue and generate new revenue, which may include a casino, which may include a sales street tax or commuter tax. But I think it's important to be able to talk about these issues before and find out the pros and cons of each. And we also have to look at measures of reducing spending as well. One of the things that I've talked about during my campaign, and I still believe in, is that we are very top heavy with management within our departments. We have commissioners, deputy commissioners, assistant deputy commissioners, assistant to the assistant deputy commissioner, and we have to look at that. Now, I firmly believe I don't like when someone loses their position or job, but in reducing costs and reducing spending, we have to look at everything possible and put it on the table for review to determine whether it's something that would be good and viable for our city.
Because I know, like, another in terms of cutting costs, like the mayor's looking at privatizing garbage collection for multi-unit buildings. Is that another thing? Because I heard it could save anywhere $3 million or $3 million plus. Is that just another way that we can try to reduce spending?
I agree, and I did support that measure that was presented to City Council. A dollar saved is a dollar saved, and when you can save 3 million of them, or receive as revenue 3 million of them, I think that was a good measure.
And so, that's citywide. We might get a little more to the city later on, but also issues with the state, and the state dealing with its own budget. Has that, that's been talked about throughout the summer, in the spring, summer, and continues. Is that something that has affected your ward, and are people coming up to you?
It definitely has had a serious impact on my ward. We have a ward that has quite a few daycare facilities, daycare providers, and we have quite a few people that rely on those services. We've cut a lot of social services that particularly a lot of people in lower income communities need. When those services were cut, our parents and our children were put in jeopardy. Their safety were put in jeopardy. Their livelihood were put into jeopardy. So I think we have to get past what I've determined to be a muscle fight between our speaker and our governor, and look at what's most important, and that's our community and the state of Illinois. So we have to look at either resolving these measures very quickly, because they are indeed impacting my community in the 29th ward.
And when you're talking about your community, we've talked about all the things that you're doing in your ward, and then also what you're doing at City Council. Striking that balance, what do you see as your job? To spending, like, if you could put a percentage on 80% focus, or 20% focused here, 80% there, 30% here, 80% there. What's the focus on City Council issues versus your ward issues?
I believe ward issues would account for the majority of the time, and the majority of my work. I would estimate that I spend perhaps 80% on ward issues and 20% on city council issues. Although there are going to be times where that changes as well. We are coming upon the 2016 budget, where a lot of my time will be spent on just preparing and producing ideas. So most of my time under that will be spent on legislative issues, more so than award issues. I have a very competent and excellent staff, and so they're able to handle a lot of the award issues while I'm addressing the other issues within City Council.
And again, I'll show the information for folks to get a hold of your office with the phone number 773-237-6460. And speaking about your warden, there's also the idea of participatory budgeting, for your ward. For folks who may not know what that is, give an explanation and whether or not you are pro or against it.
I'm pro. Yeah, I'm pro. I've had an opportunity to speak with Alderman Joe Moore and spend time with Alderman Moore. Alderman Moore implements the participatory budgeting. He was very gracious to spend a lot of time with me on how he proceeds with participatory budgeting, and I was very impressed with Alderman Moore's program. I will, and that's Alderman Joe Moore. I know we have a couple of Moores on City Council, but I will implement participatory budgeting as well. It's a process that we're going to begin in October, and we will take that through and basically allow the 29th Ward to have input on infrastructure improvements as well as ward improvements. So I'm very much looking forward to implementing participatory budgeting.
Yeah, because that's my next question is like, how are you making that connection with the folks in your ward who, who have issues, simple issues with overgrown trees, potholes, garbage issues, a lawn that's not being mowed by a neighbor. Like, what's the best way for people to address those concerns with you?
They could call my office or either come in during ward night because that's where we address those issues. And they can simply fill out a service request form with my office, and we will address those issues as expeditiously as possible. And I do make them aware of city efficiency as far as how long a particular service may take. Although it's difficult to be 100% accurate, we try to make the residents aware as best as possible how long a measure may take. I found that in the city of Chicago, it takes approximately 2.5 years or 2 years to have a tree trimmed. It's just a matter of making my constituents aware of the time length that their need may take.
As we begin to wrap up the show, what are your constituents, what are your residents telling you, and is there anything that you would like to tell them? Like what you're doing, for the ward. But first, are there things that the constituents are telling you?
Yeah, I've had complete honesty, whether it's been on Facebook or social media or community Facebook pages, and I appreciate honesty, and I make no excuses. We are working very hard, and I think one of the biggest surprises that I had as a newly elected alderman is the time that it takes to get things set up, whether it's phones or computer systems or your office. So I would say, you are, as a new alderman, you're handicapped for at least the first month or so. But now that we're up and rolling, we're working as fast and as diligent as possible to address the needs of our community. And I look forward to continuing to serve. But one thing I can tell you about my ward, they will call if there's a problem, and I love that honesty because it's in my heart, and it will always be in my heart to serve as best as possible, whether that was in the Marines, the Army National Guards, as a police officer, as a deputy sheriff. I've always served with all of my heart, and I'll continue to do that in the 29th Ward as well.
Are your ward residents, are they concerned, looking at the budget, and they're wondering, because they want to make sure that they're not the ones who are going to be forking over a lot of cash, whether it's through a property tax increase, whether it's through the red light cameras. Are these some of the concerns, that they may have?
Absolutely. And we are having, on the I believe it's the 26th of this month, we are having a community meeting where we address ideas in which we can create new revenue and reduce spending. And then as the mayor come forward with his proposed 2016 budget, we will meet on that as well. But I believe in bringing those issues to the community because when you have thousands of minds thinking together, you're more able to come up with better solutions than one person thinking.
Well, let's show your information one more time for folks who need to get a hold of you. Again, your number is 773-237-6460, and your email is ward29@cityofchicago.org. And you just really opened up your new website, correct?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so ALD and his last name Taliaferro.com. Well, as we're wrapping up here, is there anything else that you'd like to say?
Well, I just look forward to serving, and I want to make sure that each of you know that, and everyone knows that we are open. We are open door. Please come in and visit me on Mondays, and if I'm not in a meeting throughout the week, please come in and see me so we can sit down and get to know one another.
Well, thank you so much, Alderman, for joining us tonight.
I appreciate it.
You're watching Political Forum. Until next time, have a good night.
We'll see you soon.